Welcome to Silent Achievers, Stories Beyond the Limelight. I'm Adam, your host. In this podcast, we dive into the untold stories of those who prioritize impact over attention. Join us as we celebrate the unsung heroes, the architects of progress, and the quiet innovators shaping our world with deeds, not declarations. Get ready for inspiring narratives that often escape the mainstream spotlight. This is where passion, dedication, and innovation take center stage. Welcome to Silent Achievers. Welcome to the Silent Achievers podcast. Today with Miles Fowler, head coach of Club Triathlon at Queen's University of Charlotte and former student athlete himself. Hi, Miles.
Hi, Adam. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Doing all right, my man. Thank you for having me.
Oh, yeah, of course. There are many questions how I can open this conversation. But one of them is triathlon seems to play a significant part in your life. Can you share a personal story or moment that shaped your passion for this sport?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's kind of funny because I don't. It's been so long in the sport or just in endurance sports in general that I don't really remember a time where my life didn't revolve around something in whether it's in triathlon or running or something like that. A time that really stands out that kind of sealed my passion. Probably in 2015, I had a really bad cycling accident involving a car on the road, and I remember just, I spent the night in the hospital and I was super concussed and, I was unconscious like after the initial, incident, and just, seeing the, I guess, impact that had, on my family and stuff. And, they kind of realized for the first time, how serious, it can be and all the things. And I had a real choice to make, do I continue to come back, from that, or do I kind of double down and go all in, on the sport and, do everything I can, on my, road to recovery to, be the best I can be. And, luckily enough, I came out on the other side of that, decided to double down. And then, that same, summer, several months, later when I was, fully healed, I had like my 3 best triathlon races in a row, 2 of those, which I won, and I had never outright, won any, triathlon before that incident. So that kind of sealed the deal and like, okay, I really want to be involved in this and dedicate, a huge chunk of my adolescence and, early young adult life to doing the sport, whether that be, athletically or coaching.
Can you share a bit about your journey from being a student athlete at Queen's to become the head coach for the men's and women's club triathlon team?
Yeah, let's see. How can I keep it, I don't want to leave out any details, but I'll keep it concise because it's a pretty long story. I think really the journey to going from student athlete to coach, I think begins even before I arrived at Queen's. In high school, when I first got into triathlon, I did a lot of, self-coaching, self-research, doing or like Googling, or searching on Amazon, what the best, triathlon books were at the time and, buying a few of those. And, I would be, and I'd get all my work done in high school and I'd be, in class, reading those books, just trying to educate myself, or watching YouTube videos on how to get better at it. So I kind of always had this coaching mindset because I did it to myself before I did it, for anybody else. And then in 2016, when I graduated high school and then was a freshman here at Queen's, I started coaching my dad full time. And he had tried for 8 years to qualify for the Boston Marathon, and kind of the same thing. He had, read all the different running books and, tried all the kinds of different, styles of training, but could just never find anything that clicked. And so he said, okay, why don't you, give it a go and we'll see what we can do together. And, like over the span of 9 months, he got a personal best in, every distance from the mile to the marathon. And, I think he ended up running a 3:23, marathon, which was over an 11-minute personal best, at the end of that cycle, and which got him the Boston qualification. And so that kind of moment, I guess everything I felt, the fulfillment and like the joy for helping somebody else achieve their goals in that moment in 2016 was better than any, moment or, feeling of, achievement I had felt, just as an athlete on my own. And so that's kind of when I knew at some point in my life I want to get into coaching. And then, had my career here. I was the class of 2020, so we got sent home almost 4 years ago. I think it'll be 4 years next week actually, and had to kind of refigure out my life. Okay, what am I gonna do? What's going on? Is the world ending? What does life look like right now? Which is a really odd spot to be. You senior year and you're sent home, and it's kind of like college feels like a fever dream, because 1 week you're waking up in a dorm and the next year in your childhood bedroom, and back home replacing all your high school stuff with college stuff. So it's really strange. But I had a lot of reflection time to sit around and think, and I always kind of knew I was going to go to grad school, and then but I studied exercise science here at Queens, so I thought I would either go maybe into physical therapy school, or something continuing a master's, or a PhD in exercise science or exercise psychology. I was really interested in that, but basically decided to come back to Queens, and I had emailed Coach Sonny about, hey, if I come back to Queens and go to grad school and pursue something such as like an MBA, could I come back and be your assistant coach alongside you? And I was very clear up front. I said, hey, I don't want to be some sort of hybrid, assistant coach, but I'm also an athlete, on the team. I wanted to pick a side of that fence. And I said, hey, I loved my time racing collegiately. But I'm very happy to, close that door, and I want to go all in, on the coaching side of the fence athletically. And he basically responded and said, love the idea. I'm all for it. Let's make it happen. And so came on as a grad assistant, then full-time assistant. And then with our transition from D2 to D1, we restructured the kind of the coaching, structure here on the triathlon team. And he was promoted to be the director of triathlon and head coach of the NCAA team. And then I was promoted to be head coach of the men's and women's club squads. So that's kind of that's a very concise version of how I ended up getting here. Yeah.
And how does your personal experience as a student athlete shape your coaching philosophy today?
Yeah. Oh yeah, great question. I think I learned, I've been in this realm of collegiate triathlon for, 8 years now, essentially. So, while I'm about to turn 26 and fairly young when it comes to coaches, 8 years of experience in one environment, coaching one sport is 8 years of experience. It's very good. And I've done it firsthand. So I think it allows me to understand the the pressures that, the student athletes feel in this environment, where the stress of life comes from. A common triathlon, training term is, TSS, training stress score. And I think a lot in this environment, it should be more like LSS, life stress score. Because the number one thing you have to coach around in this environment is the collegiate environment. It's you have to be very flexible. You have to write training and that is very flexible and adaptable, and things can change a little bit, and you have to create an environment, I think, where student athletes feel comfortable saying to you, hey, today's just not my day. I need to back off a little bit, or hey, I was up super late studying last night. I'm kind of off a little bit. I need to either sleep in a little bit more, and I think it requires a lot of flexibility because we're people might look at triathlon and think we're doing this sport of triathlon because we're all average at the three sports in the sport, so we combine it to make it one, and we can be good at the one sport we've made out of the three. But we're really training at a very high level in all three sports. So in order to do that, you have to have a lot of flexibility. And I always say I don't rule with an iron fist as a coach. So like training can always be a conversation. I have my own personal philosophies on how to make you fit. But sometimes that might not work with your, schedule, or, you have someone who's, 18 and a freshman, their class schedule and life schedule is very different than someone who's 22, 23, a grad student, or they're graduating, college, and they're on the backside where they've got internships, or, they're student teaching, or they have a real job, working full time, so you just have to, I think you have to almost be like a Swiss Army knife of a triathlon coach in this environment, because you can't just have one way to success. I think that would be, having one way to success would lead to a lot of probably burnout, injuries, and a huge lack of success in this environment.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask, if there is any difference between coaching student athletes and pro athletes or amateur athletes,
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, the short answer is, oh, yeah, absolutely. I think, student athletes have the medium of college they're in. It's not just, I always tell recruits, we're not just a 4-year training camp. You're going to class, and we take academics very seriously because, pursuing the life of a professional triathlete and being like, oh yeah, I want to go pro and stuff is great. I want to help anybody that has those ambitions, reach those goals and achieve what they want to achieve. But, while we're here, we're going to take, the actual college and university aspect of it incredibly seriously, because even as a professional, you're always, one injury, one accident, one, illness away from not being able to provide for yourself. So, I want to make sure everybody here gets some, real world skills and, learns a lot about the professional environment of, the workplace outside of sport. And so I think when you're training, 20-ish hours a week or, whatever it might be in the college environment, the kind of the life stress score of that is going to be a lot higher than the life stress score of somebody who has the ability to train full time. And that's kind of, all they do, because you can train, eat, put your feet up and rest, as opposed to, train, eat, go to class, study, take an exam, because cortisol is cortisol in your body. It doesn't matter if you get that from training or if you get that, from the stress of an exam. It's going to impact your body negatively the same way. I've really, I'm grateful for my, time in this environment, over the last 8 years to kind of learn how all those stress, impacts you. I think if you're training, 20, 25 hours a week before you come to college, during the summer, and that's all you have to do, and mom and dad are, cooking for you or helping you do your laundry and stuff, or, they're taking care of your bikes and everything, when you come here and you're really on your own for the first time, that 20, 25 hours a week might look more like 16, 17, 18 hours a week of training, because there's so many more stressors. You have to do your own laundry. You've got to look after yourself, hold yourself accountable, go to class, So yeah, I think it matters on, what your life schedule and what your environment, looks like, whether you want to be a professional, or a college athlete.
You mentioned it a little bit, but how would you describe the culture of the Queen's University of Charlotte club triathlon team or the whole triathlon team?
Yeah, I think one of my favorite things about the team has always been we work incredibly hard, and we have a lot of very ambitious, people on this team, but I always feel like we're having fun doing it. There's hardly ever a session where people aren't, laughing and, chuckling beforehand, or, you're cracking a few jokes, in between, intervals or reps or something like that. And I think that really makes, kind of a lot of the pressure and, stressors in this environment kind of fade away. So I think the recipe, or, the formula, whatever we have here, or the culture, if you want to call it that, where, we train hard, work hard, and everybody kind of understands that. But it's also this aspect of, everybody wants to be here. Everybody is having, a good time and enjoying themselves while also, working this hard. I think that's one of the beautiful things about the environment, that, Sonny and myself have created, all these years. And, every single team member, that's been here has helped, us build and create in some way, shape, or form. And we've learned a lot of lessons throughout the years and stuff. And, I think, you can probably feel it, being on the team, yourself. It's just a fun group to be around. It's the favorite part of my day when I show up to practice and people are, laughing or having a good time and stuff, or just, the little, bit of banter that goes on that's just like picking fun at each other, but like in a fun way. And, I don't know. I think that's what makes it all worth it and makes it all, tolerable over, weeks and months of, hard, intense training.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but you are one of the youngest triathlon coaches in the country, or maybe even the youngest. Right?
Yeah, that I know of. There's definitely some other young guys in the coaching world, but I think at the time I was promoted and hired as a head coach. I was the youngest head coach in Queen's history. I think when I was 24, and I'll be 26 here in a couple of weeks, But yeah, as far as I know, youngest coach to lead a team to, national titles and things like that. And I also think, not to talk too much about myself, but I think, when I was brought on as an assistant coach and we won nationals, there was only one other, the assistant swim coach, Nick Erickson, at the time. He and I were the only two Queens alumni to have been student athletes on national championship winning teams and then go on to be assistant coaches on national championship winning teams. But now I believe I'm the only one who has gone on to be a head coach and win a national title as well. So to do it as a student athlete, an assistant coach, and a head coach is pretty cool.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. How does it feel to be leading one of the best triathlon programs in the country? Is there a lot of pressure?
I don't know if I would call it, pressure. It's definitely, I don't feel it to be pressure from a winning standpoint. I think a lot of it was, when I was first brought on, it was a pressure of, okay, I don't want to mess this up. It was like I was always, kind of thinking on the back foot of like, playing it safe and not, messing up the opportunity I'd been given. Because I mean, what a tremendous opportunity to, inherit a program that's been built up to be so dominant and have so many good athletes and stuff. And now I'm, everybody on the team is being told, I'm the guy to lead the way. But yeah, I think it's humbling in a way, because I felt like I've worked over half my life to coach in the sport, to be good at the sport in some way, shape, or form, and to have put in years and years of work and just like my own continuing education and trying to know a lot about the sport, to see it pay off this early. It's not something I really expected, but it's been a fun ride and a fun adventure, and I've learned just as much about myself as I've learned coaching and being around the team and stuff. And I mean, I think I always have to keep an open mind. Like, I don't think I could have come into this environment and said, hey, I'm going to do things, my way or the highway. I think that would have rubbed, a lot of people, the wrong way. And just being open and flexible to different ideas or, different perspectives of training, because, I'm fully aware that, everybody that was here was successful in some way, shape, or form before they got here. And so for me to, inherit, successful athletes, I always want to learn, okay, what made you successful? Here's my 2 cents on how we can continue that success. Here's what I would, change. Here's what I wouldn't change. Do we need to double down on some of your strengths? Should we work on some of your weaknesses? And so that's just kind of, I guess, my personal philosophy of always keeping an open mind when it comes to an athlete. How I train, somebody who is, hyper dedicated to the sport, wants to be a full-time professional, might not be the same as I, train somebody who wants to just be here, get the best out of themselves for 4 years, and then is happy to go on into their, area of study and get a career and, live their life. And, I want both those people to achieve whatever they want to achieve. And I want to do, whatever is in my power to help them, achieve that. And I think a lot of it is knowing when to apply that pressure and when to push. But a lot of it is knowing when to, hold back, especially in the sport of triathlon, where everybody is so, gung-ho and ambitious and type A, and we always think, more is better, or, we have a sport that is 3 sports, and then there's so many other technical aspects of it. There's always something you could be working on, that I think, one of the greatest abilities I have as a coach is to provide perspective on, maybe you're not exactly seeing in the race results, your improvement that you want to be seeing, but you're racing in, a higher level of competition. And so to be where you are in that higher level of competition, that in itself is improvement. Or, it's like maybe you're so hyper focused on, okay, I want my run to improve a lot, but you've become a dominant, swim cyclist, and that's improvement as well. And so it's up to me to somehow, provide that perspective to people when they're, either down, about, things aren't really going that well, or maybe things are going, a little too well. And you've got to say, okay, I'm glad things are going well, but like, here's how that looks in the greater scope of the year, especially this early in the season when a lot of guys are super fit. That's all the reason not to keep the foot on the gas and say, okay, we don't want to peak super early in the year. Let's hold back a little bit so that we can keep, the success going all year round. So just knowing when to push forward or pull back and provide the perspective on, what improvement and achievement actually, looks like. Especially on a team where we have a very wide range of ability levels. I think that's one of the most interesting things about the club nature of the team is we have guys that are, lights out in what they do, whether that be, on the bike or, swimming in open water and racing or, even running. And then we have, guys that are a bit younger and, have, years to develop. And so, having to be adaptable as a coach to know how to train those guys that are, can handle a lot more volume or racing a lot faster, or racing, some of them in professional fields versus, the guy who's coming off, the junior circuit and, has those ambitions. But it's, how can I help him provide the perspective of, okay, I can't make you that top guy in year one. It might take some time, and you've got to buy into that process and, those years of development, because, I think we're all a little impatient on wanting to see improvement, and it definitely, a lot of that stuff can't happen in just one semester. It definitely takes time. So just getting those guys to buy in and learn from the older guys and see how they do things that's made them successful is a huge part of it as well.
Yeah, I really like you mentioned patience and really be mindful of your time and know that sometimes less is more.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it, and I think it's really important to remember that for not just sports, but the whole career in a way. And my other question is, how have you evolved as a leader from student athlete to coach? How does this look like, your leadership style? How did it evolve?
Funny enough, something leadership and mentorship and coaching and stuff, it's been something I've studied for, quite some time before anybody ever called me coach or a leader or a mentor, things like that. And so, I think being, young, people might have, questioned, okay, do I belong in this position? Should I be here? Am I the right fit for it? But I think having the years of experience under my belt and kind of, looking at my coaching role is not as, I don't sit up on, my throne and I'm, barking orders at people to do this. It's very much a partnership in a way. And I hope everybody on our team, feels that way, to talk about training and discuss it. And I think with, Gen Z, we always want to know kind of like the why behind things. And you want to know, what we're doing and why we're doing it and stuff. And I think our generation questions authority in a different way because we're so used to having so much information, given to us. We can Google pretty much anything and get expert level answers, immediately. So I think, my ability to provide perspective of the college environment, sure, you can be a triathlete and be like, okay, well, how come we're not using, lactate meters to do our threshold stuff? And it's like, okay, how come, we're not doing that kind of thing and being a little bit more scientific? And I just don't think it works. That kind of thing works in the college environment because there's so many independent variables here, in college. And so I think that's been probably my biggest form of personal growth is going from, because I think innately I am very much someone who I want to be like, because I told you so, that's very much, I think, I've done the ALP, leadership, survey, and I've gone through that class and in the MBA program, and I'm a very strong asserter, which is someone that, wants to tell you, here's how it is, and that's what we're doing. And because I said so, but I think having that self-awareness is very important because you can't coach Gen Z athletes like that. I don't think it would work, especially being, Gen Z myself. I think it would lead to a lot more friction and a lot more, who is this guy? Why is he, being an asshole to me, and stuff like that. I think it's a lot better to do it in a partnership, way, especially working with, young people. And yeah, and everybody's a little bit different. You've got guys on the team, and I write a workout or I explain it and stuff, and they want to know, all the reasons and the details why. And you've got people that just say, okay, that's what coach said, copy that, I'm doing it. And I'm fine with, both. I was the guy that wanted to know why we were doing things or why we weren't doing things and stuff like that. So I very much, get both sides of that same coin. How do you feel it is, being someone that I coach and someone that's on the team? Give me your perspective. That'd be very interesting.
No, yeah, it's awesome. I think all the things you said are completely right. You are really listening what do we have to say about all the stuff we are doing, and then trying to really, you are basically not building the training for everyone. You are building the training around individuals and then leading them to what they want to achieve. And that's, I think, one of the key things here at Queens, that you are not doing something just because coach told you so, but you are doing something because you want to achieve something, and the coach is really helping you with that kind of planning it and leading you towards that goal. So that's great, and I'm glad that you mentioned the ALP test. Because I'm asserter too. So we are two asserters in the room. And I'm also glad that you mentioned that you are like an MBA student right now. So how do you balance between, your coach career, your school, but also athletic career? That's, that's crazy.
Yeah, well, I think when it comes to school, coaching, just relationships, whether it be, my friendships and, my personal, private, romantic relationship and all the things, my athletic career is probably at the bottom of that list. I'm totally okay with that. I very much, I still train and run and lift weights just because I enjoy being fit. I've enjoyed being fit and exercising since, I was in 5th grade, and I was, a physical education major at my elementary school because that was something, we did back then. And I've always, loved exercise and just feeling good and being healthy. And so, it will always be a part of my life. But when it comes to, balancing school and coaching and all these things, I don't know if there is a balance. It's very much all in on all endeavors. But, to me, the way I see life, that's what makes life, worth living. I don't really want to be half-assed, in the things just for the sake of, I need balance, or like, I need to, rest, or I need to say no to this. I very much want to do the things that I'm doing well. And yeah, sure, a lot of that stuff, falls through the cracks sometimes because that's just, what it is. Coaching at the end of the day, it's not just, the passion and what I wanted to do with my life, but it's still my job. It's how I get paid and can support myself, a little bit. And, working here, going to school and all the things, it helps because, the classes are at night or online, and it does help this semester. I've only got, one class left before I'll have my master's, so that's good. And I'm very much excited for school to be over with so I can, focus on some other stuff. But, very grateful for the, time being. And I think just coaching in the college environment while still being in school, still always keeps me grounded in the fact that, you guys are all still going to school, as well. So it's like, oh, wow, if I'm, coaching and I'm stressed about, an exam or a project, or, I've got to be like, oh my gosh, how can I find time to organize this group project and get everybody to meet, you guys are feeling that same pressure as well. So it's always a good, reminder. But when it comes to balance, I don't think there really is, such a thing, because my girlfriend is very important to me. Keeping up with my family and communicating with them is very important to me. And just having a few really close personal friendships that they're all very important to me. And I try to be on top of all those things and do them all very well. And that's life. And if that means I can't spend 15 hours of my week riding my bike anymore, I'm totally okay with that. It took me years to kind of break away my ego from being correlated to what my power meter told me, and so now it just running and finding the fulfillment and, just moving my body and, getting the heart rate up and sweating and, being fit enough to do some of the workouts, with some of you guys every now and then still is very much important to me. And I still love to do that. So, I don't know if that directly answers the question, but it's kind of my insight on balance and doing things. And, I don't know. I think one of the biggest things I do for myself is, a couple things that are just fun for me, whether it's, playing, a bit of, Xbox or, Warzone, with some of my good friends, I make time for that, just to shut my brain off. I've got, one of my best friends is, he's running his own business. And so when we can hop on the game together and just have a good laugh, it's the one time of the day where we're not, in charge of anything really. And so it's kind of, relieving in that way. Or, I always make time to talk with my girlfriend on the phone multiple times a day, just, so we can hear each other's voice and just say, how you doing, checking in. And, I'm thinking about you and, I hope you're doing well and I love you and, all those things. So, and same thing with my family. I probably don't call my mom and dad or my sister, as much as I should, but we have a family group chat and we're always texting and talking and communicating and making sure every now and again we do intentionally, check in. And I do that with all my friends. That's very important to me.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
I think that's a great example of when you are finished with your college, after college, you are a student athlete, and then there is the transition, and sometimes it can be really painful and it takes some time to kind of handle, to understand what just happened. But I think it's great, what you just said, to just you have to accept it, and the sooner you accept it, the better, and the happier you are. But what are your thoughts about the future of triathlon, especially at the collegiate level?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. And I can speak very much from the club side of things. I don't know, all the details of the NCAA. Obviously, Sonny is a, good mentor and a great friend of mine. Not just my boss, but so we talk a lot about that. And one of my friends, JT Rogers, who was former teammate here. He's gone and done some great things for NCAA Tri on a media side of things, and just hyping up that space more. And all the other coaches that I'm good friends with. So, I don't know all the details on the NCAA, but, I think from triathlon as a whole, from what I can see, I just think we have to get coaches and administration, on the same page about, the direction of the sport and where it should go. I don't have any great answers, like any answers on, how the sport should grow more, how we can get more people, involved in the sport and stuff. But I do think first and foremost, we have to get, all coaches and, people at the governing bodies, on the same page about how to operate and how to grow and how to go about things. We can't really have just any one, coach or program kind of sit up, on their mountain, just because you're at, a larger school with, more resources. You can't just sit up there, on your mountain and say, oh, okay, we're just going to, worry about us and do things our way. You've got to help out everybody, really. Maybe that means making a decision that, a race format isn't going to be, ideal for your team, but it's ideal for, most teams. I think triathlon is in a very important spot right now, in an important space to grow and to stick collegiately. And I think it's there. I think the interest is there. It's a cool product. It's a really cool sport, and I think it's special because we can go outside of our sport to recruit a little bit. Like you don't have soccer players, becoming swimmers, or, you don't have, swimmers going on to, play football most of the time, right? But, in triathlon, we can take, maybe you take that cross-country runner that, wasn't as good at running as they thought they might be, and, they didn't get into the school to run, or the swimmer might be in the same boat, and we can introduce them to triathlon and say, hey, here's an avenue you can go down and still, ride or run, learn to ride a bike, and, all the things, and still compete at a high level, collegiately. And I think that's a huge pathway to grow the sport moving forward. Triathlon has always been a space for, sport innovation, like with aero bars and cycling, or just are lax in rules when it comes to, trying out new things, whether it be wetsuits or, disc wheels and stuff like that, or, carbon plated shoes and stuff like that. And so I think we need to take that same, creative mindset and apply it into the college space. Otherwise, I don't know. Obviously, I want the sport to grow and to thrive, every which way it can, but it is going to require everyone in the college space, club, NCAA, alike, to get on the same page with the sport and how to go about it, moving forward. I think it takes a lot of, education for, athletic departments to, learn about triathlon, what it is, what it takes, and all the things. So, I don't have any, super finite answers. I have a lot of, my opinions. But I do know first and foremost, we've all got to, get on the same page and support each other. It's like if we have a recruit, that wants to come to Queens and, maybe things don't work out for them to come here, can we send them, somewhere else and say, hey, you can go do triathlon maybe here. I can hit up another coach and say, hey, you might want to look at this person, bring them onto your roster. I think they'd be a good fit, things like that. We just need to support each other in that sense that I think, other sports have been around for a long time, so they don't have to do that. They can be more competitive and compete on all levels, whereas I think on triathlon, we've really got to work together on a lot of, areas to, keep the sport alive and thriving and moving forward and being successful.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And what is your one advice you would give to a young triathlete who is balancing, academics, athletics, and personal growth?
I guess my advice would be do what you need to do to keep your love for the sport, and be patient. I think impatience and thinking, the way the school system teaches us is, we can think, semester by semester, or, it's like, okay, in these, 6-month training blocks, or, this season, I got to take a minute off my 5K time, and the next season I got to take another minute off that time. And, I think it's okay to slow down and, view the bigger picture and be like, okay, you know, triathlon is a developmental game. You know, like you might not be as genetically, you know, blessed as somebody else, you know, with, you know, height or, you know, oxygen uptake ability or, you know, muscle fibers and all the things. But you can work really hard in this sport, and you can get, you know, 8.5% of the way in this sport just by working hard and staying smart and being consistent with it. And I think in order to do that, you have to keep, you know, your love and your passion. And of course that comes with, you know, highs and lows. But I think, you know, too many like young people put the pressure on themselves to be like, okay, I'm in, you know, here's how my cross country coach, you know, coaches me. I'm, you know, if I'm not successful in this system, then I'm just not a good runner. You know, it's like, okay, maybe you would be successful in a different, you know, system or looking at things from a different perspective. And, you know, that goes for any kind of coach, you know, or system, quote unquote, like relationship. You know, don't sell yourself short and, you know, do the things to kind of keep the love and the passion going. Like, I mean, I didn't run track in high school because in the springtime, I wanted to ride my bike and, you know, swim and get ready for a triathlon season. And, you know, I think a lot of, you know, younger endurance athletes feel that pressure to, you know, do track and keep swimming and get ready for tri season and stuff. And, you know, I think if you need to eliminate, you know, one of those to keep the love for the sport, you know, for the sake of your own longevity, I do it. You know, I think don't feel the pressure to, you know, have that conversation, you know, with your parents, you know, like, I mean, like I did, you know, I remember like going up to my parents and saying, hey, you know, like, I don't want to do this because, you know, I have these goals and these ambitions, you know, in this sport, and here's, you know, how I see that going. And, you know, they were totally, you know, on board with it, because I was super passionate and loved it. And you know, I think you do need to do the things that, you know, keep your love in the sport. You know, like, you might be a really good swimmer and a really good cyclist, and, you know, you need to get better at running, but if all you ever did was run, you know, you're going to hate it, you know, so keep those strengths alive and, you know, keep the reasons that you fell in love with the sport, the reasons you fell in love with the sport. Because I think that'll keep you going, you know, for life. Because that's one of the beautiful things about triathlon is it doesn't have to be over, you know, after high school or after college. You know, it's something you can do for the rest of your life and just live an active and healthy lifestyle. And the only way to do that is to keep kind of like a love and a passion for it and being consistent. So, yeah, that's kind of a long-winded answer to my one piece of advice.
Awesome. Thank you very much for the interview, and good luck with everything.
Thanks, my man. It was great to chat with you, you know, in a different format, and yeah, same to you.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube or follow us on Spotify for more exciting content ahead.